Welcome back, y'all, to the Nourishing Women podcast, your go-to podcast to get your period back and get pregnant. I'm your host, Victoria Myers, period recovery specialist, fertility dietitian, and owner of the virtual coaching practice, Nourishing Minds Nutrition, where we work together to restore your fertility. Today's episode is one I've been itching to record because we're about to bust one of the biggest myths I see floating around in the wellness and the fertility spaces, especially in that clean girl, plant-based green smoothie world. You feel me? This episode was actually inspired by my husband. Let me explain. He went to his doctor for his annual, like he does every year, got blood work. It came back with a slightly elevated cholesterol. And what did his doctor tell him? His doctor immediately told him to cut out red meat, to cut out saturated fat, and to stop eating a lot of meat and foods that had cholesterol in them, and told him even to go plant-based. And that honestly is a conversation. We should have that on the podcast here soon about why that is just terrible advice. But what it really did do for today's episode specifically is ignite a fire under me. I've got to record this episode. I'm kind of envisioning myself on a debate stage talking to you and saying hey, I believe that red meat is healthy, and here's why. We should be eating beef for fertility. Here's why. By the way, with my husband, we have him on a very specific plan now to lower his cholesterol, and we're even going to retest his labs in 3 months and see how they come back and go from there. I'll let you guys know at the end of the year how everything goes with that. But all to say, cutting out saturated fat alone is not going to solve cholesterol. And in fact, we want the saturated fat and cholesterol from red meat. So let's talk about it. Are y'all ready? Today we're going to be talking about why you should absolutely be eating beef if you want to support your fertility. Yes, red meat, as in steak, ground beef, roast, short ribs, bone broth, all of it. We're diving into why red meat, especially grass-fed red meat, is one of the most nutrient-dense, fertility-supportive foods you can eat. Now, if you've been following along with our Nourish Your Body for Fertility series here on the podcast, there's a 4-part series. I'll link to it in the show notes. You already know that I love a good nutrient-dense food. Not only does it make the work of period recovery so much easier, but it also supports egg quality for fertility too. And just in case you're new here, by the way, nutrient density simply means foods that give you a ton of bang for your buck in terms of vitamins, minerals, but also fuel, also known as calories. Grass-fed beef is a powerhouse for fertility. We're talking an incredible super bioavailable source of heme iron, and this is key for egg health and preventing anemia. Yes, some plant-based foods have iron in it, but it's not nearly as bioavailable and absorbable as it is from something like red meat. Red meat is also a phenomenal source of zinc, which helps regulate gene expression, supports the egg development, and reduces oxidative stress. Grass-fed beef is a phenomenal source of B12, which you can only find in animal products. This is essential for ovulation, supporting implantation and early embryo development, and preventing neural tube defects too. And speaking of neural tube defects, choline, according to the book Real Food for Fertility, which is found in most significant sources in eggs and in liver, but it's also found in beef. Choline is so important during preconception because it plays an important role in some of the early steps of your baby's development, including the proper closure of said neural tube. Red meat is also a very important source of many essential amino acids that we have to have, one of them being glycine. Glycine is also one of the 3 amino acids that makes up glutathione, which is an antioxidant. Now, antioxidants are so important for egg quality, especially if you remember in that series on Nourish Your Body for Fertility series that we did, we talked about how we want to prevent as much oxidative stress to the eggs, and specifically the mitochondria in those eggs. And antioxidants like glutathione, which is made up by glycine and other amino acids, is how we help reduce oxidative stress, therefore improve the egg quality of our eggs and make pregnancy and getting and staying pregnant that much easier. Red meat is also a phenomenal source, obviously, of protein and saturated fat. We need both for stable blood sugar, hormone synthesis, and so much more. But since I just brought up saturated fats, let's talk about them for a minute. Saturated fat, it is not the villain. Now, I know some of you are still side-eyeing saturated fat, but let's set the record straight. The demonization of saturated fat largely stems from outdated and deeply flawed research by Ansel Keys in the 1950s. His infamous 7-country study cherry-picked data to support his theory that saturated fat causes heart disease, completely ignoring countries where high saturated fat intake did not, though, lead to heart issues. This fear-based narrative unfortunately stuck, and we've ran with it as a culture, despite the fact that saturated fat is needed just as much as we need other healthy fats. Think monounsaturated fats and omega-3 fatty acids. Another argument made against red meat is the amount of cholesterol found in it. If we look at something like ground beef labeled 90% lean, you're looking at about 4 to 6 grams of saturated fat and about 70 to 75 milligrams of cholesterol for a 4-ounce serving of said ground beef. But here's another truth bomb for you. Cholesterol is the foundation of every single sex hormone in the body. That includes estrogen, progesterone, all the hormones you need to ovulate to have a regular cycle and get and stay pregnant. Without enough cholesterol, your body literally cannot make these hormones. It's like trying to build a house without bricks. It's one of the many reasons I don't recommend a vegan or vegetarian diet for fertility, but I absolutely do not recommend them for period recovery specifically. Eating dietary cholesterol does not raise blood cholesterol levels for most people either, despite long-standing myths. Instead, what actually raises blood cholesterol, especially the LDL or the bad type, is high intake of inflammatory causing foods, namely trans fat, ultra processed foods, sugary foods, high carbohydrate foods, and inflammatory foods like seed oils. So when you cut out cholesterol rich foods in the name of clean eating or fertility friendly diet, you're actually robbing your body of one of the most essential hormone building ingredients it needs. Next time you hear someone fear-mongering cholesterol, remember, cholesterol isn't clogging your arteries, it's fueling your fertility. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, does it have to be grass-fed? Not necessarily, because eating any red meat is better than none. And also here, we're not about a food obsession. We're about nourishment without obsession or perfectionism. So while it's ideal if you can't access it, it's not available in your area, or you simply can't afford it, that's okay too. But if you can choose grass-fed beef or know exactly where you're sourcing your meat from, that is the ideal scenario here. While all beef provides valuable nutrients like protein, iron, and B12, grass-fed beef offers an extra layer of fertility-supportive goodness compared to conventional grass-fed beef tends to have higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids, more antioxidant-rich vitamin E, and better omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. Plus, animals raised on pastures aren't pumped with unnecessary hormones or antibiotics, which helps reduce overall toxic burden, which is something we do ideally want to minimize in our fertility journey. I can't count how many times I've seen a client go from exhausted and bloated and missing periods to cycling again, glowing with energy, and literally getting a positive pregnancy test once they ate more consistently and regularly throughout the day, stopped fearing calories, and added in nutrient-dense foods like red meat multiple times a day. It makes me think actually of a client I work with named Paige. She had for months been eating the amount that we recommend. She had even gained quite a significant amount of weight, and yet her cycle still wasn't returning. Knowing that she was a vegetarian, we kind of put in a last-ditch effort of a recommendation of like, hey, would you be willing to eat meat, specifically red meat, and let's see if this will do the job. And guess what happened? She got her period back, and it's been consistent ever since. So if you've been scared of eating red meat, or you're mentally stuck in the grilled chicken and ground turkey loop, I lovingly want to challenge you to try adding ground beef to your pasta night. Grilling a juicy steak with sweet potatoes and sauteed spinach. Personally, I love going to a butcher to get really good quality cuts of meat. Get a Kansas City strip. I promise you, best steak you'll ever eat. But other ideas also include, making a batch of chili with beef, going for slow cooked meat on the bone, and bone broth as much as you can too. And these actually have even more nutrients in them, and bonus points are more affordable oftentimes too. You can even add in liver to your beef and make it even more nutrient dense. And honestly, we need to have a podcast episode soon about the benefits of eating liver and why I recommend that for fertility too. And at the end of the day, at the end of this episode, I just want to remind you that eating red meat isn't anti-wellness. It's not dirty, it's not dangerous or backwards. It's ancestrally aligned, it's nutrient-rich, and it's hormonally supportive. If you're trying to get pregnant and you're still cutting out food that your body needs, that's the real problem. So if you've been living off of egg whites and almond milk and bland chicken breasts, I lovingly invite you to come back to abundance. I promise you, your body will thank you. If this episode resonated and you're ready to truly nourish your body so that you can get your period back and your fertility too, I would love to invite you to work with my team and I inside of Premier Period Recovery for Fertility. Inside of our program, you'll receive a root cause investigation into your period loss, a tailored period recovery and fertility plan that will get your period back and include these nutrient-dense foods like the red meat we discussed today to support your fertility. 101 unwavering support to implement these recommendations and make adjustments along the way to your positive pregnancy test, and customized supplement protocols, functional lab testing, fuel your fertility membership to connect with other Premier clients, and so much more. The link to learn more and apply is in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We'll be back as always for another episode next week. Go eat a burger in the meantime and know that a nourished body is a powerful one.